We have to see here that we are seeing a pattern.
Yes.
And recognizing it allows us to draft and figure out the alternative. And that, again, it allows us to kind of break down those barriers and build these international movements that are necessary for resisting that erosion of democracy.
I think AOC does need a Daniel Bessner, because if she's going to traffic in narratives that Americans consider to be radical, she needs actually someone who is a well-read academic that is on the radical side. And the radical side is obviously the truth, right? Because no matter what happens, if you're a politician, the people that you have guiding you, you're going to have a more watered down version of what they're telling you. So if the people that are guiding you don't have the same, don't have a more radical vision than you in general, your output is going to be good, but it's not going to get all the way across the finish line. That's how I feel. People have brought up that Bernie had Daniel Bessner in his corner alongside Matt Duss, and that played this duality. I do think that with AOC, someone like that would be great.
My question is, how essential do you think acknowledging the fact that the impunity our leaders have allowed Netanyahu's government is at its core a failed policy, and we have to do right by Palestinians in order to have any claim to an honest, morally responsible foreign policy?
If I spoke on this issue in the state of Germany, I would go to prison. I would just straight up say what I said in Canada. I would call it a Holocaust, and I would literally go to prison. They would arrest me for saying that. They would call it Holocaust denial, and I'd either get deported from the country or prosecuted. It's literally in the books. Holocaust relativization.
I believe that it is not a coincidence that so much political instability has transpired, as so many people have seen this happen, unfold before the world. But we cannot let this slide and descent.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally saying democracy cannot be seen as a system of governance that has yielded or oversaw the death and destruction of the children in Gaza. Okay, that's it. Because you can't maintain a pro-democracy position at a time when there's genuine fascist backsliding, where you give the fascists an opportunity to say, this is all hypocritical, this is all irrelevant, this is all wrong. After all, look at what Israel has done. Look at what America has done to the children in Gaza. That's what she's saying here. It's too wordy, unfortunately, and hopefully she can just chop it down a little bit. But she didn't say that. She said something more watered down. No, she did say that. What are you talking about? Okay, I'm going to say something quite controversial right now that a lot of people are going to lose their minds over, because I know, as someone who's been a big Bernie fan in the past, I feel discouraged by what Bernie has done in these last 2 years, and there's obviously plenty of criticism that I've dished out to AOC as well. AOC, regardless of her foreign policy acumen, is literally further to the left on foreign policy related matters than Bernie Sanders is. Nowhere near where she needs to be in comparison Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, but she quite literally is further to the left than Bernie is on foreign policy, okay? Some people consider this to be controversial. The reason why I think people consider this to be controversial is because they don't like the vibes that AOC is putting out, where they just don't like the lack of confidence behind her words, or one reason or another. Now, I would say that Bernie Sanders had a longer track record on foreign policy that was infinitely more anti-imperialist, leading up into the 90s, that actually makes his current right-wing pivot post-90s far more awful. Bernie Sanders literally was like, I don't think we should be funding the Nicaraguan death squads. That's why I said into the 90s. Yugoslavia is the one time where his position actually, post-Yugoslavia, Bernie Sanders' attitude, I think, became very different on American foreign policy. And even then, that is nowhere near as controversial as people who love Parenti present it as. Bernie has more rough blue-collar style, while AOC is very academic or community organizer type, and it reminds people of Radlibs. Yes, I think AOC's biggest problem, well, she is also a brown woman, okay? So there is always that as well. Let's be real. I'm not getting into, I'm not saying that's the only problem, but in the way that people receive her, that absolutely plays a role, right? Overall, though, I do think she gets lost in the weeds a little bit while trying to maintain this this like as even keeled approach as she can possibly come across as, and that becomes an issue. I know that I have the same problems. Let's be real, okay? I get too wordy sometimes. Actually, I see myself in a lot of her weakest aspects. I also think I get too wordy and pedantic and worry about like what the haters are gonna say in the back of my mind. So I'm constantly trying to channel like the most reasonable position I can. AOC addressing speculation about our political future. I remain ambitious, but my ambitions are about changing our political environment. The ambitions of a progressive movement go so far beyond an elected office. We are coming. Oh my God, that's so good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Come on. That's good. That's fire. That's the best thing. That's the best thing I've heard from her this past week. There were a couple good lines from AOC that I wanted to show you, by the way. This is specifically about the most vulnerable amongst us being responsible for all of the economic issues that we're facing. Okay.
That's the stuff that right-wing populist movements are made of. And that, of course, is all done as a distraction from the truth, which is that it is economic elites that are taking the lion's share of growth for themselves and leaving crumbs for the working class. So the alternative to the lie, which is that it is the most vulnerable in society that is doing this, the alternative is a populist movement that tells the truth. A populist movement that says, this is an injustice. You are being screwed over. And that story is not a cultural one, but a class one. And that it is a class one.
Oh, dude. She's right. Let's run that back. Let's run that back.
In society that is doing this. The alternative is a populist movement that tells the truth. A populist movement that says, this is an injustice. You are being screwed over. And that story is not a cultural one, but a class one. And that it is a class one.
That's right. Finally. And we got another one. Persuade the moderates.
Electoral movements, and we have to persuade moderate movements to
going so long. We're persuading the moderates. A lot of you are like this right now.
Brother,
You need to stop. This is a new dawn. This is a new day. This is a new life. Okay. Yeah. When I say Sunday fun day, this is what I meant. Okay. Oh, you got a problem with what I'm doing?
we do not care.
That's right. I'm just saying. Don't make me get out the band hammer.
remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator. And it is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled the...
Who was he? Was a leader, canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean we can kidnap it. I mean, it's a far greater crime. Here she calls out the Dems. Ooh, I like that. Let's see.
I was told that I was an enemy of my party, that I was going to be the reason why the right won, that I was going to cause that the entire future of the country was in balance, and that I was the reason why we would lose. And what was hurtful about it was that they were telling.
Me too. I've heard that many times before. Let's be real. I have no idea what she's talking about, and neither does she. I love that these guys are so stupid to understand what she's saying, but then they assume that the person speaking is just as stupid as they are. Grok, what does class-based internationalism mean? Class-based internationalism is a political concept often from socialist or Marxist traditions that emphasizes solidarity and cooperation among working classes and oppressed groups across borders, prioritizing class interests over national, ethnic, and geographic alliances. In AOC's context, it critiques the pro-West policies that advocates for global unity against exploitation. Wow, this guy understood it and said, thanks for the explanation. Oh no, never mind. He said, often from socialist or Marxist traditions, they must be stopped in the election if we want the U.S. to continue to thrive for future generations, and that includes immigrants.